Welcome to HackNITR 3.0 Coin Network Workshop. HackNITR 3.0 is here to give a plethora of fun events, workshops, and a 36-hour hackathon to hackers all around the world. We have more than 2,000 registrations till now, and a lot of our audience here are building awesome stuff about a separate lot of problems. And I'm pretty sure that this workshop would help them really. And coming to speakers, we have Olmaris, the founder and CEO of Coin Network, and he's a multidimensional personality. And now over to you, Maurice.
Hi, thanks for having me. And thanks for trying the Coin Network for anybody that's already begun to look at our libraries. I know there's a few people out there that have already contacted me.
Yeah, thanks.
I
Just
suppose
like
I can I jump in and show a presentation, or should we talk about Koi a little bit? Should we kind of give a
yeah, sure.
general kind of overview, or I have
Yeah,
a slide deck here, but it doesn't look like it's on screen at the moment. There it is. Okay, great, cool. Yeah, so the idea of Koi is that people like us are on the internet all the time, and we are creating value for other people by being here. Um, Most of the time, people try to capture this value indirectly, but what we're trying to do is kind of just keep track directly. So we want to actually keep track of who sees what and give people credit for the value they're creating for other people by being online and doing all this cool stuff. Um, and so this is kind of this is a path that we came onto kind of indirectly. I started out looking at DAOs as a way to police kind of misinformation online. There's a lot of people out there that are kind of like creating all kinds of lies and stuff like that. And we've sort of evolved from there to be able to not only have sort of a group of people online that we can trust, but also to be able to communicate with them and share content that nobody can take down. That's kind of what we're working on. Do you want to stay on for the presentation, or did you want to drop off before we hop in? Or do you kind of want to ask questions, or do we have like a live audience here as well? Can we talk to people as we go? How does this work?
yeah, yeah. Like you could present now, and you would be taking the questions of the audience at the end of your presentation.
Okay, cool. And people can drop them in the comments as we go, right? How does this work?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay, great, cool. Yeah. So if people have questions along the way, please drop questions in the comments. Before we hop into it, I should tell you about some free stuff. So we have a couple of hackathons upcoming, additionally, including this one. Those all have some kind of prizes associated with them. And if you haven't heard about the prizes, or if you're not aware of Koi grants, it's another thing that you can get. So we basically have a number of ways of getting funded to work on Koi. We also have basically the general attention rewards. So every day we're minting Koi tokens, and these get given out to people who are creating content that other people are looking at. And so if you're creating content that's going into our network, even if it's through a dApp that you've created, then that content will earn you Koi tokens every day, kind of in perpetuity. And we've designed that intentionally. And the final thing, of course, is there's lots of other people in the network right now. So like get the Finney Wallet, set it up on Twitter and so on, because then you'll be in all the NFT drops. And so without further ado, I should hop into the presentation. By the way, I'm Al. Alex Alexander Morris. Al was better for SEO at one point, so I've begun to shorten it. Somebody told me that was a good idea for marketing, so we've done that. I'm also Alex, though. If you reach out to me, you can call me Alex. I founded the Coin Network. I also founded WeTeachBlockchain.org. So if you're interested in like early stage blockchain stuff, or you want to learn a little bit about the background of where this industry came from, we spent a long time in Chicago, kind of teaching in-person seminars and teaching a lot of people about kind of what was behind the movement that led to blockchain, and sort of a lot of the fundamental technologies like cryptography that lead to people being able to use this stuff more readily. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so through Koi's Discord, discord.gg/Koi, or on Twitter, al_Koi. Very happy to be here to tell you kind of about what we're doing. And to kind of lead into today's discussion, I wanted to kind of give an example. And so that's kind of comes down to what happens if somebody takes down the media after I buy my NFT? So there's a guy famously who on OpenSea, I believe, basically sold a bunch of NFTs, and then shortly thereafter replaced all of the image metadata on his Google Drive, I think it was, with a bunch of pictures of rugs. And so he really actually rug pulled some people. He took all of their money for selling the NFTs, and then he replaced them with photos of rugs. And that can happen, and people can do this all the time. And so a lot of people have already actually figured out a solution to this. There's solutions like Arweave out there, which we'll talk about in a minute, but decentralized storage solutions that allow you to essentially upload a bunch of stuff onto onto these networks so that you don't have to worry about somebody else taking it down. And so the question then actually becomes, what if somebody takes my thing off the decentralized storage container and registers it in a bunch of other places and copyrights me? And so a lot of companies like DeviantArt, for example, I've heard that they're having a lot of problems with this. People were basically taking content off of DeviantArt and then registering it as NFTs, and I think they took over 11,000 different pieces of content. So it's a huge problem, right? People copyrighting each other's stuff. And so the question becomes like, is there a better way to handle all this information? Is there a better way to take all this content that we're creating every day? Because all of us are using the internet all the time. And take all this content and like kind of copyright it as we put it out there so that nobody can take it away from us. And so that's kind of what we've been working on. We're working very closely with the team of Arweave. Arweave is a decentralized storage network that actually works in a permanent medium. So they've taken some of the technology behind Bitcoin, kind of basic principles of a blockchain, and they've expanded it into something they call a block weave. And a block weave is kind of like you're taking an enormous amount of data and then essentially compressing it onto a single blockchain. You're getting all the nodes to store a whole bunch of it at the same time by requiring them to have it so that they can mine new blocks. So it's kind of an incentive game paired with decentralized storage. And they've done it very, very efficiently. And so because of that technology, because of the ability to store all this content permanently, we've been able to develop something really cool on top of it. This is actually not just something we came up with. This is kind of evolved from a number of people within the Arweave ecosystem. But the general idea is that an atomic NFT allows you to not only have the media file live on-chain, which is an innovation in itself, and make sure that the media file can't get pulled down or that somebody can't replace it with a photo of a rug, but also to actually add the smart contract onto that media file as a single payload and store all of that onto decentralized storage permanently. And so this is really powerful because it means like now not only is everything on chain, but also everything is together and it can't be you can't take it apart, right? And so this idea of keeping everything together is really, really, really important here. And there's a number of reasons that this is really cool. The first thing is this is really efficient. It means you only have one on-chain transaction to create your NFT instead of potentially having to write it first to Arweave and then create a transaction on Ethereum. The second thing is, of course, again, fully on-chain. Everything's on-chain. It's all in the same place. Even if one blockchain goes down, in a typical situation, Ethereum plus storage medium, right? One of them could fall apart. In this case, it's all in one place. So I guess maybe all your eggs in one basket. At Koi, what we've done with that is that we've made them interoperable so that you can move them around. And so we've taken this atomic NFT standard and we've paired it up with the existing 1155 standard so that you can move these things over to Ethereum. And in fact, our bridge just launched this week for that. So now, in fact, I'll give a demo of that in a couple minutes, but essentially with one click now, you can move something from Arweave over to Ethereum. And anyways, I'll hop into that in a second. So the question becomes like, okay, so this is a storage medium, it's on a blockchain, it's all on chain. What if I have to make an update? And so that's actually something that we've developed kind of in partnership with a lot of people on Arweave. We're one of the big proponents of it now, but the idea is essentially called SmartWeave. And so what SmartWeave is just like a smart contract on Ethereum, you can append information to a specific data point. And so you can say like, okay, this is what it was here, and now we want to add a bunch of other stuff to it. But it's all in the data layer on top of a decentralized storage medium, so it's a lot less expensive than writing it into a proof of work network because you're not having to compute information right away. Okay, in short, what is an NFT? Yeah, Jeff said non-fungible token. NFTs are the ability to have information that you own, right? Kind of like a copyright. So you're saying, I have a signature that says this is mine. And you're going to put that signature, that contract that represents your ownership of that thing onto a blockchain where everybody else can see it. And if other people approve of it, or if you do it in kind of an organized fashion, then other people will take it seriously, and then it has value because you can then sell it to other people because it's an asset. I hope that kind of helps. To get back to the general concept here, and speaking of NFTs, actually, here's an NFT. So these are atomic zombies. These are the thing that we created recently in partnership with an artist from Calgary. He's come up with this kind of like awesome thing where he's making essentially like live, like real living zombies on the blockchain. So he animated a whole bunch of layers of these zombies where each layer has a different thing on it. So something like an axe sticking in their head. I'll show some of these in a second. But they've got all these different characteristics to them. And then over time, we've also added in dynamic features to them. And we've come up with a way using Koi to deploy all of this using JavaScript. And then if you want to sell it on OpenSea or a platform like that, you can move it over into that medium when you're ready. But we've kind of obfuscated most of the stuff like dealing with Solidity so that you don't have to think about that part and you can kind of just focus on building stuff. Me personally, I'm mostly a JavaScript guy. I learned Solidity begrudgingly at one point because I had to, but I would much rather do it. Oh, and so here's some of these zombies that we've created. Again, they are dynamic. So like this crown, for example, every day we're going to elect a leading zombie, and that zombie will get the crown. In fact, we'll have 3 crowns. And the zombies that have the crown will be eligible for specific airdrops that will be only available to the zombie that's got the crown each day. And so if your zombie gets the most attention, you'll get the crown. And then you get to get some airdrops or kind of get some special privileges. And so there's a lot of these fun things that we can do with these NFTs that are a lot more exciting than just kind of the traditional collectible angle or the artistic angle. That we do appreciate both of those and try to support them. And so the general idea behind Koi, though, is that we take these atomic NFTs and we patch them together into data objects so that we can create something that's more like a decentralized operating system, especially one that is cross-compatible so we can move this information across different blockchains and have kind of cross-chain interactions. And so that started out with us trying to build decentralized app templates, ones that you could kind of deploy and kind of forget about and monetize immediately. But then the idea became a little bit broader because we realized we had to offer cross-chain services and a bunch of different kind of modular services evolved on top of this. So like an example of one of these is with an NFT, if you want to move it over onto OpenSea, you have to have a thumbnail. So we created a service that creates those thumbnails. And you can get this service served to you from another coin node, which could be somebody's personal computer currently, or eventually probably somebody's smartphone. And so the really awesome thing about these, though, as well, is that the Koi system is designed to be chain agnostic. So we've got a number of different key pair types that are already embedded into our SDK. And so you start using JavaScript, but then you can just plug right into all these decentralized systems. And then finally, like I mentioned, the atomic NFT kind of ties all of this together because every piece of content that you create with Koi is an NFT, which means that every piece of content is an asset that can then be sold. And by the way, this is, again, all powered by Arweave. So if you haven't checked that out yet, definitely a really good thing to look into. I'm going to have a quick sip. Not powered by Coca-Cola, incidentally, though they do make really good caffeinated beverages. So steps to deploy a dynamic NFT. This is kind of what we're here for, a little bit of a workshop. The idea here, these dynamic NFTs, I should probably show you a demo. I think I will in a second. The general idea behind them is you've got a bunch of information that needs to get stored on a blockchain that you're going to reconstruct into an application that somebody can interact with. In fact, you know what, before we hop in here, maybe let's do a demo. So I'm going to hop through these ones and we'll come back to them in a second. So here's our demo. If anybody's watching right now, you can open up this link. It's koi.me/zombie. And I'm going to give people a couple seconds to open it up so that there's a few people maybe already looking at it when we get there. In the meantime, you guys get to watch a little scroll of some zombies popping up on the screen here. I hope you like them. These were all created by hand, by the way, in the last probably 3 weeks. Shows you what a dedicated person can do. He created every single one of these as an individual layer. So all the clothing is kind of, it's all compressed onto them. So it's actually all just a bunch of layers with CSS and HTML kind of patching something together. It's like ironically like Frankenstein, if you can imagine. So I think we've given enough time for people to hop in there. Have to take a little break from talking sometimes. Sorry, I get talking a little bit fast. It's very early in the morning here. I don't know if you guys have noticed. In Halifax right now, it is 1:16 in the morning, so it's a little dark out. So here's our zombie. I pulled up this link. This is the same one that I just had on the screen there a second ago, koi.me/zombie. And the first thing we're going to see here is that Finney Wallet has popped up to show me that I need to actually approve the transaction to connect to this to the browser here. And so I don't know if you guys can see this one. Can you see this pop up? Probably not. Okay, so I have to type my password in here because I'm a verified Finney user already. And that's because the proofs of real traffic are actually generated from my wallet. And so if I opt into getting tracked, then the artist that creates this gets more attention. And we'll just see that just went up from 237 to 238 because another person popped in. This zombie has been active all day. So she's already been through all of the levels of growth that you can get. We just saw 239 there. And so she's got this like kind of smoke thing happening. There's the podcast mic on there. And I think since this is supposed to be a technical demo, I'll show you guys just exactly what's happening here. I don't know how many people here can follow along, but we'll pull up the JavaScript console anyways. We are going to see this one was a prototype that we deployed last night. So there's a couple of console errors popping up. I think there's something trying to reload an image over and over again. Yeah, that's not looking great, is it? So if we look in here, though, the thing I wanted to show is just this. This is a whole stream of these little layers. So this is just one necklace here. Here's another one. This is another necklace. And each one of these layers is essentially a different piece of this zombie that's being added on top of it. And here's our podcast mic there. These are all getting dynamically added depending on the attributes and the characteristics of the zombie itself. So in this particular case, this one's getting a lot of attention, so it had to get the podcast mic out, right? Like it's like time to kind of get into it, just like I've got one here. And so that's kind of that's the general idea. These are also available right now, by the way, if you wanted to get one. If you go to atomiczombies.io, so we'll go here, zombies.io. Hopefully this one will pull up. This will look the same as the one that you just saw. You can sign up here. We're going to be giving these away kind of hopefully in the next 48 hours or so. We were going to launch it yesterday, but Ethereum gas prices got really, really high, and we didn't want anybody to get completely priced out of it. So that's the Coca-Cola coming back to bite me. So the site here, though, this also will be completely open source within a week or two. So you can grab this one if you'd like it. And all of these are available on the Atomic NFT site. So that's going to be atomicnft.com. And this has basically a full kind of overview of the Atomic NFT concept as well as how to deploy them. If you wanted to kind of take a look under the hood, you'll see all the kind of details of SmartWeave and Rweave. But down here in the middle section, we actually have templates of each of the contracts. And so this includes all of your kind of smart contract functions that you need to have, as well as kind of a description of how they work. If you're looking more for an example, though, and you come back over to your zombie here, you can click this Explore Block button, and that's going to take you over to View Block. So View Block is the kind of de facto Rweave Explorer. This is sort of one of these things that keeps happening where everybody keeps making new block explorers. We find View Block is actually really good, though. One thing it does really nicely is it represents all of the tag data. So when you upload an Rweave transaction, in this case, we uploaded that zombie as a text HTML file. And so that's defined here. And then we passed in a payload that was just, normal data. So it's just like uploading a file format. But then when you pass in that information, you also pass in this contract source as well as some kind of metadata. And you also pass in an init state that's in JSON. And so by passing all this in, what you're basically doing is you're creating something that then later on, other people who are using SmartWeave can come back and read. And so this is kind of like the equivalent of writing information to a hard drive in a format that your other parts of your computer can read. And so that's kind of why we think of this as a decentralized operating system, because it's more about kind of classifying the information and organizing it than it is about trying to like reinvent the wheel when it comes to consensus or anything like that. In fact, if you look at the way that Koi nodes are set up, really what we're practicing is a very simple proof of stake system. In fact, every Koi task is a separate proof of stake system. We'll come back to this in a second now. So if we hop over to the contract tab here, inside the contract, we get essentially a state object, which is just like the one that we passed in the initialization. And this is a JSON object. It's essentially just going to contain some metadata, right? You can add some things to it. So for example, the balances object here is updated when somebody interacts with the contract. And so if I were to transfer it, in fact, I did yesterday. So I transferred this one from my wallet to the recipient, who is the person who won it as the patient zero. They're the first one to get infected by the zombie. And so I transferred it to their wallet. And so I updated this array because I was the owner of the contract. I was allowed to update the array. And I just changed the entry to this person's address. And so now they own that particular asset. And you can see that function defined here as well, the transfer function. And if we hop over to the transactions tab, we get a list of all these transactions. And here's one right there. And this is actually that interaction that I made. And so you can see that I even passed in the wallet address there. And so this is really, really simple stuff, all written in JavaScript. It all runs on decentralized storage. And every single one of these interactions can be done for like literally thousands of a penny, which is really, really important. Because if you look at currently the gas fees on Ethereum and things like that, it's kind of overwhelming. One thing we're also looking at doing along with this is to be able to incorporate other features into Koi nodes. So the Koi nodes currently are defined on the Koi GitHub. So we can hop over here. So it'll be github.com/koi.network. And under that side of it, you'll be able to grab the Koi task standard, which should be the first repo. That has a definition of kind of how this off-chain stuff that I've been talking about works. We originally came up with this for web scraping, but it essentially allows you to have essentially an off-chain transaction that happens, and you can have a whole bunch of stuff happening off-chain, and then you recompile it back to on-chain, and that allows you to kind of have an off-chain thing occur that then gets incentivized by an on-chain reward. And so the way that you do that is you, as a task creator, you create these executable files. They go in here. They get run by a node, and that node comes back with a result and writes it on chain. this gets verified by other nodes, and the results go back. So I mentioned earlier, we're trying to use this currently for creating thumbnails and a bunch of other stuff. We also realized recently that we can also get these the nodes to talk using IPFS and Redis and other caching mechanisms. And so now what we're kind of looking at is like, maybe we can get coin nodes to start doing kind of a decentralized compute functionality as well. So if you're interested in that side of it, like more of a back-end engineer, this is probably the place to look at. If you are not interested in back-end development and this doesn't appeal to you, you know, if being able to spin up your own Express server on somebody else's computer isn't kind of an exciting idea, then the other thing to check out is this Atomic NFTs GitHub. So that's going to be github.com/atomic NFTs. By the way, I also do have all of these in the slide deck that I'm going to be handing out, or I'll be publishing it on Arweave probably later, and I'll post it on Twitter. But this Atomic NFTs repo also has examples of how to deploy everything. Not the zombies yet. I think we'll be adding that in this week. But inside of here, we've also got the dynamic NFTs, which is the Narcissus flower, which is an earlier project that we came up with. And there's also a general create NFT. And these are going to work the same as the Finney Wallet. Oh, and the Finney Wallet's the other thing to check out. So I'm wondering, oh yeah, you can see this. So the drop down here, this is my wallets. This is Finney. So Finney's kind of like MetaMask if you've used that before. It's a key storage device. So it keeps your ECDSA and your RSA keys inside of the wallet and allows you to sign for things when you need to do stuff. So you can click here on the go to my gallery button and it'll open up a gallery page that's essentially like a full screen view of all of your NFTs. This takes a second to load sometimes on my computer, so we might have to be a little patient. Yeah, so here it is. So these are all NFTs that I've created using the Finney Wallet or using Koi. This one lives on Arweave at the moment, as you can see from the logo here. But we actually also have one-click interfaces, so you can transfer them to Ethereum and to other networks. You also see that the number of views is counted here, and then I've earned about 2,100 Koi for that. This is one of the first posts on Koi.rocks, so I got a lot of Koi because nobody else was looking at anything those days. If you go back over to the rough tab here, though, you get this kind of gallery view, and you're actually able to see, even if you have your Ethereum keys hooked up, you can see which ones of your NFTs are not currently backed up to Arweave. And so that's if like the metadata, for example, is resolving to you know, like an Amazon Web Services or a Google Cloud container where you don't really want it to be on decentralized storage, or on centralized storage rather. And so in here you can see a couple of the zombie prototypes as well. So a few of these Narcissus flowers. These ones are kind of neat. They were in another early design from the dynamic NFT days. And so the idea here was that we would have this flower that opened if more people looked at it over time. And so what we did was we stitched together a whole bunch of SVGs, compressed them into a text HTML payload, and put that payload on Arweave, which is why it takes so long to load. Each of them is like, I think, 5 megabytes or something like that. So please don't open this on your phone. We can do a demo on that one too. That one's koi.me/flower. Let's see if that one's any good. It should still work, hopefully. Can we get that one up in the chat there? Koi.me/flower. This one. There it is. Cool. Yeah, if you guys come and hop onto this one with me, we should see this flower start to open up. There's one view from me right now. And so this is another kind of example of what you can do with this kind of a framework. And the idea here isn't that you're going to create like world-changing technology, but if you create apps like this and you embed them into an iframe and then put them onto decentralized storage as a single payload, the really cool thing is you can use them to build like a Facebook or something like that as well. And so we have a few people right now that are working on using these to make everything from like a Spotify type music streaming app to a, you know, a completely open source version of something like Twitter. So we're making DID profile pages, for example, at the moment. So it looks like we got a couple people streaming in. You can see the flowers kind of begun to open already. And now it's wilting back down because we haven't got enough new people coming to look at it. We made these ones very aggressive. So the zombies are very generous. The zombies will react to the amount of attention that they've gained in an entire day. Whereas these ones are probably, I think it's like a 30 or 40 second time span. So they have to get a lot of attention very quickly. Looks like nobody's into the flower. So we'll skip that and we'll hop over to the next thing. So the flower here, the flower was really designed to show off the ability to do this kind of dynamic attention tracking. But the real purpose that we actually designed that for was to support Koi.rocks. And so if you haven't seen Koi.rocks yet, what this is essentially an attention leaderboard. And this was designed to mirror kind of Facebook and that sort of thing. Per a number of requests over the last couple of days, we are working hard at the moment to document and open source this in the next probably week or so, hopefully. And if not before then, we'll probably start inviting people privately at least. So if you are interested in being able to see some of how this works, please reach out. Essentially what you're seeing here, though, is this is a list view of all of these individual assets, which are all stored on the Koi network and on Arweave. Koi nodes index all this information, though, and so they are all available under our Koi tasks. So if you go to mainnet.koi.live right now, for example, /tasks, you get our REST API of all of our nodes. And on this REST API, you're also going to get essentially the list of all the tasks. So if you grab one of these task IDs, you'll be able to hop into the actual namespace on that node, and you can see this task's data. And the task has essentially a state object that lives on each of the nodes that are running that task. And yeah, there's some mention of the flower being confused. That does seem to happen. Some of those are very early again. Sorry, I see a couple questions in here actually, so I might pause for a moment and leave you with the matrix screen, and we can talk through some of these. So again, a very beginner question. Since everything is just tech stuff, very much similar to a website, what makes it so hyped and valuable? Okay, so the idea here is, and maybe here's a good example of this. So Kevin Abosh persistence. So here's the article in Cointelegraph about this project that we did. So the general idea here was that there was a newspaper that was taken down because they had some politically sensitive content in this newspaper. So they got raided by the government, and a bunch of people went in and basically arrested all the people that were working there, and they just kind of shut down their servers and deleted their website. So some people on Arweave really didn't like that. So they archived the whole website. They put it all onto Arweave. And what we did was we put it all into a thumb drive and backed it all up and gave it to this artist, Kevin Abosh, and he put it into an art gallery as an exhibit, which means that it's going to be kept in their archive for a very, very long time in a safety deposit box. And nobody can ever delete that now. And the best part is if you plug this into a computer, it's going to load up a Koi node and also start broadcasting that content and make sure it gets loaded onto Arweave. So even if somebody has had that backup destroyed somehow, and they've destroyed all the Arweave nodes that were running it, we're going to provide another copy that's going to be hash registered into the system, and everybody will be able to know that it's a verifiable truth. And so that's kind of like, that's the power of these things, is that instead of social media being something that we just use to connect, it can be something that we use to make history. And that's really exciting, because I think right now there's a lot of really confusing stuff going on. If you look at like social media, especially with news, with kind of everybody sort of being locked in their houses for the last couple of years due to COVID, it's become sort of a crazy time for a lot of people. And I think the solution to that in a big way is to have better peer-to-peer technology, so that we're connecting more directly with people and there's not as much of an intermediation of what we're saying. There's a lot of people kind of who would probably rather have it the other way. From a very practical perspective though, so as a software developer, if you look at the top coins on CoinMarketCap right now, none of them are actually social. And that's actually probably, I think, more due to the nascency of the networks. So there's kind of an opportunity to be had, though, if you look at this, just from the fact that most of this is very raw infrastructure at this point. Nobody's really created the user experience aspect to any of these systems. And so if you can create systems that are better for people, if you can make NFT thumbnails, if you can make their lives a little bit more efficient, then you can carve out a niche in this new emerging industry. And as all these digital assets evolve, if somebody wants to have an enormous crowd sale for their NFT, they absolutely are going to buy a thumbnail for it. They're going to pay a decentralized network to do that because it's necessary for the flow of the information and so on. And so, it may seem like it's all kind of like it doesn't make any sense to have this new system that's just like the old system. But the thing is, the new system lives on the internet and it belongs to all of us, instead of the old system, which usually lived in someone's building that they had owned for hundreds of years. So it's kind of a way of actually going and shaking up these old industries and finding new ways to do the same things that everybody's been doing for a long time, but with a little bit less profiteering and rent seeking, hopefully. We see it as a way to create new free markets for things like social media. Just looking through again here. So what inspired us to make Koi Network? I guess I kind of covered that a little bit. The general notion being, though, that Koi Network was designed to create this this way of sharing information more seamlessly. So you don't really want to have a number of large publishing houses or a number of large hosting companies control all the information in the world. If you have an enormous amount of control by a few small entities, then you're basically setting yourself up for a situation where those entities fall into the control of the wrong people. And that seems to be just like a general problem in the history of society. The guys at Arweave are pretty great. They actually named the port of Arweave 1984, kind of to point out that the point of it is to prevent people from taking advantage of information systems to control people. And we really see that as like a real threat in the coming future. In the next 50 to 100 years, it's very realistic that somebody could sort of start to wipe hard drives and rewrite history a little bit. Especially now, we don't really have paper copies of anything anymore, right? It would be very hard to ensure that somebody doesn't go back and just change what the newspaper said. So there's a very kind of like real side of it. And then the fun side of it, though, is that we get to create these new types of social media where everybody can get paid. So there's a music streaming company called Arcadix at the moment they're in Montreal. And their current project is essentially to put together a entire music streaming platform where the artists not only own the content that they're creating from day one, where they don't have to necessarily pay like a record label a part of their revenue, but they also own a part of the platform with more content that they're creating. And so these kinds of like profit sharing schemes and sort of cooperative models are only enabled by having better information. If you have better information sharing systems, you can cooperate with people more effectively without kind of losing what you would have previously lost. So anyways, I'll hop back over to the presentation side of things here. I've kind of been rambling for a little bit. The thing that I would recommend for everybody is if you are into Arweave at all, please try out the ArcB library. ArcB, I didn't really explain how this works. This is probably actually worth showing. So ArcB is designed as essentially a system for deploying an entire folder. So if I wanted to right now, let's see, I'll go into my zombies folder. I think I've called it zombie mess. And I'm going to deploy one of our project folders that has all the SVGs in it to Arweave. And so when I go to actually deploy one of these things, I actually use this ArcB library to deploy the entire folder once. And so it helps to have some kind of key commands in here. A lot of these will be in the zombies repo, and we open source it later this week. And so if you run this command, you essentially get, you might get this error. You might have to use node 16 instead of node 13 to get around the subtle crypto errors. But if you run this command, you're able to essentially run an entire deployment of a folder onto Arweave, if you know your password. There we go. And so what this is doing right now, I'm deploying an entire folder here. Simply in one step onto Arweave. It's going to create one transaction for each of these items, get them all into decentralized storage very quickly so they can never be censored. So the reason I wanted to show this demo is because now that this entire folder is on Arweave, it can't get taken down. It's on thousands and thousands of computers. And so let's say that I am a journalist in a politically sensitive country. I could have quickly just uploaded all of the stuff that I needed to make sure nobody can get rid of it. Maybe you have to tell somebody how to go find it, but that's just a matter of sending them the manifest file. And so there's some of these kind of things out there that are really powerful that are part of this movement that go well beyond the NFT stuff that's kind of happening on the front of it. In the short term, though, the thing that's really amazing about this is there's things like web scraping that we're also working on. So there's a tool called StoreCat that's been run by the Coin Network since actually before we got the whole project going. And StoreCat was designed to use coin nodes to go out and parse web data and fetch information. So I might be able to actually pull up a quick demo of that since we still have a second here. This is storecat.com or app.storecat.com. And you can type in something here to get a web scraper going. Currently, that'll just go through one of our clusters, I think. But the gist of it is in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to use this to do everything from scrape medical supply data to scrape Bitcoin pricing. And it'll all be happening in a decentralized way, which means that a decentralized network that does commodities exchanges or does cryptocurrency exchanges can read that information. And so it becomes kind of this sort of new way of transferring information and value online. And it creates sort of a new way of trusting people as well, because if you have people hosting your content that are other people who are using their computer to host your content, it's a lot different than having a big company that actually has a bunch of lawyers and maybe wants to take that content away from you or wants to kind of profit from it in some way. And so anyways, without further ado, I will hop back over. ArcB was the tool I just showed off. If you want to check that out, I have a link in the last page here. If you do get stuck and you find that your transactions aren't getting confirmed when you're using decentralized systems in general, Ethereum, Arweave, any of the others, one of the things that you should probably look at doing is increasing the reward on the transaction. And so what that does is it tells nodes on the network that that transaction needs to get mined faster and that you are urgently waiting, and they will try to include it faster because they want the reward, which can be always pretty great. And then finally, one thing I would recommend is when you are deploying apps like this, so for example, with the zombies, when we first tried to deploy this with the narcissist file, we deployed all the metadata files and the SVGs and all this stuff inside of one payload. That's very expensive. Arweave data is very expensive, right? You're getting a bunch of other people to hold that information for you. You have to do them a favor. They have to do you a favor. It's very complicated. And so you want to minimize the amount of information that you're uploading. Try to be very efficient about it if you can. Plan it out as kind of a move. But that being said, also, if you come to the Koi faucet right now, you can get enough to probably cover your first 50 uploads. And if you need more than that for the hackathon as well, you can reach out to our support team. I will show some more links here very quickly. One thing I should say, our team is expanding very quickly and always hiring. So if you do enjoy working with this technology or if you're excited about it, please reach out to us. Some other links you can reach out to at Koi Network on Twitter, koi.network, discord.gg/koi, and I'm al_koi. Final things here would be there's a few links at the end of the slide deck for when it goes out. So this is examples of how to integrate with the Finney Wallet. So if you're building a website and you want to use the Finney Wallet to have Ethereum and Arweave compatibility out of the box, you can do that. There's a couple example sites as well. The Narcissist NFT site and the Atomic Zombies site will both be open source. So you can see a site that drops NFTs and you can try those out. And you can also take advantage of a number of integrations guides on that front. We also have a number of documentation portals about Atomic NFTs. There's atomic-nft.com. There's a couple of other things around proofs of real traffic. So the proofs of real traffic are how we track attention. So if you're interested in that side of it, or you want to build something like perhaps decentralized Google Analytics or a decentralized ad network where you don't have like one owner of the ad network that can control who gets to say what, lots of those options are available, and we have grants open for a number of these things as well. So without further ado, I think I'll close out there. I guess I'll check and see if there's any questions left before I drop off. Is there anything I haven't covered there that I should drop into? Thank you for having me, by the way. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, that was quite an awesome and insightful session indeed. And I hope a lot of our audience who are really into blockchain must have been benefited from it. And one doubt I had a small query, like what according to you is blockchain the next great technology of the future, and how do you perceive it down the line 20 years from now?
I think the thing that's happening around the world right now is that people are, we are running into the limitations of governments to handle really complicated stuff. So around the world, there's a lot of really big problems that are getting solved by a lot of people who are working because they can communicate online together. And there's a lot of things that are happening globally that are things that are happening in all kinds of places at the same time that aren't really, they're not one group of people who would have previously been governed by one person. And so for a lot of those communities, I think the thing that's going to power them in the future is decentralized organizations and decentralized currencies, purely of the fact that that's the only way for all of those people to be able to connect using the same system. Koi, as an example, is, we have a company where we have, I think, almost 30 people in like 8 or 10 different countries. And we work with tons more than that, right? And so the only way for all of these people to communicate with each other using our system would be Koi. There's no other system. If we wanted to send them money, we can't send it with Western Union. We have to use cryptocurrency. So there's a lot of these kind of limitations with the traditional world that I think are quickly getting taken over by the decentralized world. The really exciting thing for us, and the reason that I got into the space, is just this opportunity to make things that are actually better. We can make things that are more fair, that are more open. That's kind of like it's the progression of the free market. Right, we're moving towards a system that is more open and more fair, and we get to build that system, and we get to take advantage of being the people that got there first. So it's kind of a win-win as I see it. We're making society better, and we also get to get paid very well to do it and have a lot of fun. So on that note, though, if anybody does have questions, again, my Twitter's al_koi, and our Discord, discord.gg/koi. We have a ton of people who are really excited about this as well, who are happy to help. And if people want to come in there, we can continue chatting about things, and happy to do more Q&A as well.
Yeah, sure. It would be great. And we also have a Discord channel, so it would be great if you could also join over there if people, in case, want to talk with and ask some more questions.
Yeah, definitely. I'll keep an eye out for the link. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was great session.
Wonderful. Bye for
Yeah,
now.
yeah. So it was quite an awesome session, and the next session is at 11 a.m. Until then, happy hacking. Bye.
and I'll be talking about building your personal blog with Next.js, Storyblock, and Layer 0. More about myself, I am a solutions engineer at Layer 0 by Limelight, and I'm also a Storyblock ambassador, so feel free to reach out to me in case you're trying any of them. And now let's look at what to expect from this talk. First, we'll be walking over what is incremental static region. After you have updated your content. You can do that with revalidate1 to the page. Similarly, you can do this with the blocks page.
Welcome to HackNITR 3.0 and welcome to this workshop on building your personal blog with Next.js, Storyblock and Layer 0. HackNITR 3.0 is here to give a plethora of fun events, workshops and a 36-hour hackathon for hackers all around the world. We have more than 2000 registrations till now and a lot of our audience are here to build awesome stuff about a lot of separate problems and I'm sure this workshop by Mr. Rishi Raj Jain will help them a lot. We will begin with knowing our speakers. Rishi is a solutions engineer at Limelight Networks. He is also a software engineer, developer, designer, and writer as well. He is also the ambassador of Storyblock, a powerful CMS tool. With that, let's get started with the session. Over to you, Rishi.
Hey there. So I hope all of you guys are having fun at this hackathon. And this session will be about building a personal blog with Next.js, Storyblock, and Layer 0. The interesting thing about this is I discovered Storyblock out of comparison with other CMS, and I found Storyblock to be very promising in terms of the features it has. Similarly, with Layer 0, you get various edge capabilities out of the box. And yeah, go ahead with the session and should be benefit
You can
beneficial
do
for you.
IST or ISR with any framework.
Now let's talk about what is Next.js. Next.js is an all engineer at Layer 0 by Limelight, and I'm also a Storyblock ambassador. So feel free to reach out to me in case you're trying any of them. And now let's look at what to expect from this talk. First, we'll be walking over what is incremental static regeneration and how does that fit this case. Then we'll be learning more about Next.js, Storyblock, and Layer 0. And then we'll dive into a demo and then implementation of the app itself. But first, what is Layer 0? Layer 0 is an all-in-one Jamstack platform that you can use to develop, deploy, preview, and monitor your front end. Our jam is to bring large and complex websites that serves up to millions of pages into sub-second nodes. Now let's look at what is incremental static regeneration. First introduced by developers of Next.js, incremental static regeneration allows you to create pages or update content on your generated pages after you have built your site. Let's walk through an example. So let's assume a user visits a page that has not been generated yet. So first, they would see a fallback, and then they would wait for the page to load. But in the background, both the data and the page is cached so that the next time a user visits the page, they would see the page super fast, rendered with the data from the cache itself. And this allows you to create pages on demand. And this is kind of best of both worlds because you only serve and build what you need, but still get that static speed in your dynamic applications. So it's kind of a hybrid approach between static side generation and server side rendering. But the issues that came with Next.js ISR was that it is dependent on the platform it's hosted onto, and it requires an integration within the framework. But with Layer 0's general approach, you can do IST or ISR with any framework. Now let's talk about what is Next.js. Next.js is an all open source, ideal framework for a React developer that includes API routes for your serverless backend, code splitting so that you only load JS that are needed, fast refresh so that you get a smooth local development experience, file system routing so that creating pages is intuitive, server-side rendering, static side generation, incremental static generation, and font optimization. Definitely they ship a lovely DX, so just get started with Next.js and let me know your thoughts. Now let's talk about what is Storyblock. Storyblock is a headless CMS which provides you with a visual editor so that you can make your changes super smooth. It supports internationalization so that you can put in multi-language content in their blocks. It has support for both GraphQL and REST APIs. And in the example, we'll be using REST APIs to make that GraphQL calls. With Storyblock, you get access to content workflows. So in case you have a publishing pipeline and want to keep some blogs on draft stage and some unpublished, you can do that by content workflows. With Storyblock, you also get asset manager that will optimize the asset that you upload for your best loading times. And with Storyblock, you get webhooks. So in case you want to clear the cache or rebuild your website after you have updated content on Storyblok, you can do that with webhooks. Now let's talk about layer 0. With layer 0, you can cache both your APIs and HTML at the network edge so that you always stay close to users and stay fast. With layer 0, you can prefetch content at scale. And what does prefetch mean here? So assume that you have a blogs page and it consists of 10,000 blogs. And you want to make that transition from blogs page to a specific blog painless. You can do that by prefetching the data response for that specific blog that is to be visited by layer 0. With layer 0's platform, you get access to static pre-rendering, and you can do that up to 25,000 of pages in case you're on enterprise plan. With layer 0, you can also take advantage of real user monitoring, which will update your core web vitals in real time, acting as an alternative to Google Analytics so that you can know where your site is lagging behind. Now let's look at the app live in action. We'll be demonstrating how you can populate your Storyblok workspace and see the ISR in action. So let's start by creating another post. We can see that we already have 7 blogs up here, and we have a blog listing page, and then we have a specific blog page. So I'll go back to home again, and all right. Now let me add another blog to this. So you're going to say blog 8, and I'll just copy this so that I can copy this into the title itself. And then I'll say, okay, asset manager, and just keep that desktop image as is. Let me add HTTPS. And let's talk about intro. So this is being live demoed. Same in here. And I want to go with sample author for now. And then I'll publish this. And so you can expect this to come at this link, which is blog-8. That is something that I just created. And if you hit that route, you will see that blog page is rendered and this is being live demoed is there. So that page is up. You don't have to rebuild your website or redeploy it anymore. And now let's go back to homepage. So homepage would still say that there's 7 blogs because the data on this page has not been revalidated yet. So to revalidate that, just hit refresh and you have there the blog here. So if I visit this new link in, say, an incognito window, and let me just hit that quickly, you will see that you still have blog 8 for the next visitors. I hope you enjoyed the demo, and now it's time for us to dive deep into the steps. So the first step is to populate your Storyblok workspace, and then let's do that. So after I've logged in the Storyblok, you'll see the screen, and I'm gonna start by creating a new space, and I'll say HackNITR 3. Yeah, it's pre-filled, I know. And then let's create that space. So now you get set up with creating your first folder and creating your first entry. So let's start by adding authors. And we'll say authors. And we'll add our own content type. So let's just be it author for now. And I'll save this. And also create another folder which will consist of all our posts. So let me just pull posts and add new content type, and that would be post. Post is the content type name, and save it as. Awesome. And now let's start by adding authors. So I would like to create an entry inside this list of authors, and I'll say this is my hack author, and I will save this. But we have not defined any schema yet. So let's start by defining schema into what actually goes into an author. And we'll say define schema, and we want a name and an image associated with the author. But as you can see, image gets pre-filled with a text value. So we just go to type and change that to an asset and select images particularly and save that schema. Awesome. And now I can say this is my hack author, and I'm going to upload a new image, which is basically an empty white image. Pardon that for now. That's all I have right now, and I'll publish this. Awesome. And now I will go back to my posts, and add a new entry and say post 1. And I have put it up. And now so you get a pre-filled schema for this, and that's a standard post schema they have. And this will set you up very easily. And you can say blog 1. Again, my asset manager will say, okay, this white image again, and this is being demoed now. Same for the long text as of now, and I'll just select hack author as I did in the demo as well. And now I'll publish this. But how do you actually fetch the data? For that, you would need to go into your workspace and then settings, API keys, and you would see a preview token, which will help you see drafts that have not been published yet. And then you want to create a public token. So after you've created a public token, you will just want to copy it and keep it in some other tab so that you have reference to it. All right, now let's go back to the steps and see what's next. So now let's look at the next steps, and that includes dynamic routes in next and fetching data via GraphQL calls. So let's start with creating a new next project, and I'm going to say npx create next app, and let this just be a blog. Awesome. So this should be installing this quickly. Let's just wait for that. All right, we're getting there. And let me speed this up to where we have the project installed and we are into the folder of the project. Hey there. So now we have installed the dependencies, and now let's see the app live in action. So we can say npm run dev to run the server locally, and this will say welcome to Next.js in a moment. Right. So we have welcome to Next.js, and I would like you to welcome to Next.js 12 that was released an hour ago. And it comes with a Rust compiler that will boost your fast refresh by 3 times and your builds by 5 times. It comes with a bot-aware ISR fallback, and it has support for URL import. So now you can just use components by importing them from a URL. This Next.js version also comes with React 18 and React Server component support, which is supposed to be the next big thing. I will study this and get back to you guys. All right, now let's switch back to our project and let's make a change to see what's up with this. And we can say HackNITR 3 and woohoo, the change is shipped within 475 milliseconds. All right, and now let's add layer 0 to this project. To do that, I will first say yarn global add @layer 0 /CLI with sudo so that I can use that CLI anywhere. And I'll type in my password. And this will install layer 0 CLI. Awesome. And now you can do 0 in it. So you don't need to type layer 0, you can just say 0 in it. And this will install all the layer 0 dependencies required to integrate your next app. All right, let's just wait for that to happen. Meanwhile, we can create Gsconfig JSON, which will allow us to import components from anywhere in the project without creating relative URLs. So you can say compiler options and base URL dot, and then I'm looking at paths. And I want to resolve all the paths for, let's say, lib folder to @lib. Similarly, I can do with components and styles. Awesome. Right, that looks good. I don't think we need that asterisk after style. Let's just have a look at this quickly in our deployed starter. And oh, we do need them. So let's just get back to those. Awesome. Right, looks good. Let's just this I'm not going into that right now, so I can delete that. And after we have installed Ledger, you will be reported with the time it took and if there are any errors with that installation. It installs Service Worker to your next app so that you can prefetch content before even the user requests it. It adds a layer 0 config.js, which is specifying the connector for the app. And it adds a route TS, which will allow us to create edge rules so that you can cache at the edge and revalidate data at the edge itself. In next config, given the config you have before named as pre-layer 0 export, it will be included automatically into the layer 0 build with the service worker. Now let's look at app again in action. So we're going to say layer 0 dev, and this will create the router. All right, and let's just reload this page. All right, so now we are up with the app and it installed layer 0 DevTools. You can use layer 0 DevTools to determine what response and where was it served from, whether it was served from serverless or the edge or the browser. It comes in use when you're trying to determine the caching levels of your assets or your HTMLs. Now let's look at dynamic routes with Next.js. Given that Next.js follows a file-based routing, you can just say pages/blog/slug.js, which will allow you to capture every route within blog with slug. And now you can see what's there in the slug by saying export async function get static props, and this will allow you to access the context which will contain the slug. So I'm going to return props to the page, which will say slug as params.slug. And then we have constant block, which is accessing the slug and then just printing that to the page. We will also need to create get static paths, which will map the expected set of paths while we pre-render the app. So for now, we can return no paths, and the fallback should be blocking so that its server side renders a request in case the page is not there. So server side rendered the request in case the page is not built yet. Awesome. And now just let's see this live in action. So I can say /blog/HackNITR 3.0. Oh, I missed that R. Not bad. So not bad. I didn't export this page, so let's just say export default block. And now you would see HackNITR functioning. All right, super fast. So you're done with setting up dynamic routes in Next. All right, so now we're done with dynamic routes in Next. Let's come to data fetching with Storyblock. So we can go ahead and create a lib folder with API.js. And in here, we're gonna copy this fetch API function, which takes care of importing and making that GraphQL call with REST API easier for us. It has two parameters, query and a JSON object consisting of variables and preview. So first I'm going to replace the token. So let me just copy this and put this in here. And then I want to create that function of get post. So this get post will get the data only for a specific slug that we pass into it. And remember that we have created a single post named as post1 with the slug post-1. So we can query the data by that. What happened in this query is that you're querying post by slug, and then you're passing the identifier of the ID, which is a variable slug that you obtain from get static props. So let's just quickly copy this and go to slug.js and say constant data is await get post, and this will show you the automatic import for this. And then we have params.slug, and then you also want to send this data to the client so that it can be used. And then I'll obtain this data and just console log this. All right, and now let's hit post1. All right, and now let's look into the console, and we have an object which says it has content, author, image of the author, and name, the image for that blog, the intro, the long text, which consists of this is being demoed now, and the title itself. So you can use this to plan your layouts for each and every blog. Let's do one thing. Let's create another post and see post 2 live in action. So let's go to my asset manager. Again, this image, this is post 2. Similarly in here, and this is again hack author, and publish this. Awesome. And now I can say post 2. So this should fetch the object for post 2, and yay, there you have it, post 2. In content, I can go to long text to verify. This is what I have added, and this is post 2. Awesome. So now you know how do you set up dynamic routes in Next. And the next thing you might want to do is fetch all the slugs for the blog's post. So let's look at the function of get all posts for home, which will take care of creating the slug, the first published attribute, and some of the content inside the blogs. So let's just pick this up and again put this in here. And we might not require author when we show the previews for these blogs, and we might just require the title and image and intro, and not published ad definitely, and not first. Yeah, we might want to sort by when it was first published, and the slug. Awesome. And as you can see that this has no variables, because this is gonna fetch all of my blogs and then return me the slugs, the first published ad, the content for each blog, right? And now let's create another page named as blogs.js, which will map all of them in here. And I can do now export async function, get static props. Again, we access params, but they will be not useful right now. And then we're gonna say constant data is await get post, all posts for home. And this is, we're just gonna return that data as a props to the page. And then we're gonna create all of my blogs. So this is gonna accept in data and just return blogs for now, but with the data being logged. Awesome. And now we can see localhost 3000 blogs. And this will fetch, this should have fetched, again, I forgot exporting this component. So let's just do that. Right, now this says blogs, and it fetched 2 slugs and the data for those 2. So let's just quickly create some meaningful UI with this, and I'm gonna map over items inside this. So each item will have a div
which is going to have the key of item dot first published at, right? And which is unique for all the blocks, right? And then we print the content. So we're going to say item content and intro. So item content intro inside an h2 maybe, and then there's going to be an a link or a next link with the href to item dot, and now we can see what is the slug for this, post 2, right? The slug for this is post 2, so we can say item dot slug. But we also want to go to blog slash that, so let's just quickly use this to say blog slash item slug, and inside of this I'm gonna place my a, and which will say item dot content, and I want to look at the intro of these blogs, right? So this is the post 2 and this is post 2. This is being demoed now. Oh, I just placed counter. All right, so let's just say read more, and a forward arrow, and I'm going to read more, and this should take me to post 2. Awesome. So now we have created that component which will allow us to fetch all the data on the slash blogs page and take you to a specific blog, right? And now just deploy this to layer 0 to see this live in action. And this is the minimal setup that you need. You can definitely use Tailwind CSS to make your UI meaningful. Let's just deploy this to layer 0. And we can say 0 deploy or 0 deploy. And we can see this being deployed to my personal space, right? And this is end deployment. So it's creating a build, a next build first, and then it will apply layer 0 over your build to configure it for that prefetch and caching. Let's just wait for a second or two. Fast forwarded it to the deployment as happened, and you can see that live on Rishi Rajchan blog default layer 0 link, and there you have it. So now I can visit blogs page to see what's there, and it has, this is post 2, this is being demoed now, and if I go to read more, you would see that super fast transition because that's a static page altogether, and similarly with post 1. But now if I go and add content or update content to my story blog post space, let me add another post quickly. So I'm going to say post 3, save this, and let me give this title, again the image, and this is added before we have implemented ISR, and HackNITR and publish this. Awesome. And now let's look at this blogs page. Does that load post 3 in here? No. But it would allow us to create post 3 page, and which will say that, okay, in console you might be able to look at the data for this page, which will say that this is added before ISR, right? So we can still create pages, but we don't get the updated content on those pages. That's because we have implemented incremental static generation and not regeneration. To implement ISR, you just need to say slug and revalidate 1 so that the data on this page is revalidated per second. This comes helpful when you update content on your specific blogs. Let's look that live in action before we deploy it. So we go to post 2 and say this is post 2, aka before ISR. Okay, and then we publish this again and it got published. And then we reload this page And then we reload this page. And in the object, you should be saying this is post2 because this page was statically pre-rendered or once generated won't be regenerated after you have updated your content. You can do that with revalidate1 to the page. Similarly, you can do this with the blocks page and just see that in action. So let's do another deploy of this. Or let me create an environment before I deploy this so we can see the live comparison. So I'll go to environments and create a new environment and say ISR and create that. Right, so this has created the ISR environment and now I can do layer 0 deploy to my environment which is named as ISR. And now just deploy this revalidate1 to the project. All right, so now we have deployed the ISR environment and now we have a comparison link between blocks page. So let's update content on story block and see if that gets reflected in the non-ISR and the ISR link. So what we see on the blocks page is the intro part to this, and I will just update for post 3, or let's go to post 2 and update that to this is post 2. This is an updated post 2, right? And publish this. So now if you reload this page, you don't see that changed in here. But if I reload this page, which says this is updated post 2, so you get to see that change with the ISR link. Similarly, you can go to post 2 page and check that in console based on the object, which right now says this is post 2 before ISR, and this is the ISR link. So if I just reload this page and check the object, this should say this is an updated post 2. Pretty awesome, right? But if I go to post 2 in here and reload the page, then I won't see this is an updated post 2. That's it. Now you have successfully set up incremental static generation combined with revalidation named as incremental static regeneration. Hope you enjoyed this and thank you for having me at HackNITR 3.0.
Oh, that was really an awesome and insightful session. Thank you, Rishi, for that. Well, I never knew creating a blog was so simple. Now it is time to take some questions from the audience.
All right.
The first question is, what are your thoughts on the new release of Next.js version 12?
Right, so I'm always excited about releases of Next.js, and this release came with a Rust compiler which will speed up your builds and fast refresh so that you have a better DX as well as you can ship faster. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next question. What is storyblocks and storybooks?
Right, that's a good question. I think I just searched. Storybook is a tool that you can use to create UI frameworks, but that is a lot different from what Storyblock is. Storyblock is a headless CMS, so it's kind of content management repository where you can just update content and expect it to be changed on your websites.
Oh, see. How did you guys make such a cool website?
I think you need to answer that because that came before the stream went live.
Sorry. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. What are the extra features on Next.js over React.js?
Right. So with Next.js, you get features such as automatic support for API routes so that you can use serverless backend inside of your next React apps. So you don't need to set up search engine optimization with this. Next.js also has this SEO course that you can use to, um, you know, get acquainted with the benefits of Next.js and how you can boost your SEO of your website.
Okay, thanks for the answer. What is a headless CMS? Next question.
Yep. So CMS are of two types. Like one of them is called as legacy CMS, where you can manage in the front end and the back end. Basically, you're also updating the data plus the website and how that website looks like. But with headless CMS, you only focus on the content and try and look at the ways how you can supply data to the front end in terms of GraphQL APIs or REST APIs.
Okay. Uh, I guess that's it. Thank you, Rishi, for answering the questions. It was really a great session. So I thank you once again for that. To wrap up, uh, the next session is Introduction to the World of Product Management by Suhas Motwani and Smarth Vasdev at 3:30 p.m. today. So guys, don't forget to tune in, and all the best and happy hacking.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.